Hi, Ram.
Hi Santhi, how are you doing?
Yeah, fine, Ram. Thank you. So today I came up with some other topic. Like I would like to know about background check importance and background check details, Ram.
Okay, so do you have any specific question?
Yes. So do all companies conduct background checks?
Yeah, so yes, so it's a good question, very important question for people to know. In Canada, whether they like you technically or not, but they always want to ensure whether you are a clean person. Okay, so every company, almost every company does background check. And in all these background checks, criminal check is a mandatory step every company does because they wanted to hire somebody who is clean and no criminal history. That way, their workplace is same because most of the companies register for WSIB, Workers Safety Insurance Board, right? So they always want to ensure whoever they hire, they are clean in terms of criminal history. And of course, besides the criminal check, there are a lot of other background checks are done.
Okay. So why is it important for companies to conduct background checks?
Yeah, just now, as I said, since companies want to hire a person who is clean, right?
Oh,
So,
okay.
since they wanted to ensure, they wanted to bring a nice person who has no bad history. So that way, their workplace is safe, the work is safe, the project that working on is safe, everything is safe.
So how many types of background checks are there?
There are typically background check is only one, but there are different checks they do as a part of background check.
Background check.
Okay, so the first and foremost is criminal check. Okay, they do it no matter what. And number two is they will check for your identity, whether you have any Canadian identity or not. Okay, and number three, they will check your references.
Okay.
Okay, and number four, they do employment check, your past employment check. Number five, they do your education check. Number six, they do your credential check. Credential check means if you have any certifications. And number seven is credit check. Okay, we will go to each one of these seven checks in detail, but these are the seven checks. Criminal check, uh, background check or criminal check is the same. Education check, employment check, reference check, credit check, credentials check, and also your identity check. Seven. So they need not be in the same order, but I randomly have given the order. Now let's go each one of you, each one of these checks. Number one is criminal check. So as I said, they will check your criminal records in all the police stations and in the courts. They will see if you have any bad remark in those records. Your name should not be in those records.
Okay.
Okay, so if the search comes with an ill record, which means you are safe, but if the search comes with some records, which means you are in the danger zone.
Okay.
Okay, so they ideally, many a time either manually or automatically can pull your record and check it. Okay, not only in Canada, they will do your criminal check in whichever country you have stayed in the past 10-15 years. So if your past employment is in the US, then they will check your criminal history in the US as well. If your past employment was in India, they will check your criminal history in India as well. So sometimes if you have worked in multiple geographical locations, then your background check gets delayed. Okay. Now let's go to the next one, identity check. Why does anybody want to do identity check? Because they wanted to ensure that you are indeed a person who has a status in Canada. Typically, in identity check, your immigration status will come into picture. Your SIN number gets displayed. Your identity document, either your driving license. So your driving license is going to be the input for identity check, but based on your driving license, they will pull all your identification records in all the Canadian databases, be it CRA or banks or credit unions or credit bureaus or any other places, statutory organization. As I said, the main goal of this identity check is to see if you have a real identity in Canada. They wanted to ensure they don't hire somebody who has no status in Canada, somebody who is a visitor, right? So they wanted to filter all those kinds of people. Number three, when once they know you are in Canada and you are in clean, you have a valid status, then they do your employment check. Okay. It is whatever employment you have claimed in your resume, they will verify if all that employment is correct or not. So ideally, they will try to contact all the previous employers whom you worked with, and then try to see, if your employment is genuine or not. Meaning, whatever dates you mentioned in the resume should match with whatever your employer confirms. Okay. So this employment check will happen with your employers only, not all the clients, because under one employer, you might work for multiple clients, right? For example, if you join in TCS, you can work for, if you worked in TCS for 10 years, you might have worked for 3 or 4 clients. You need not have to provide all the 3 clients. TCS is your employer. So employment check is to verify your employment dates, your roles, and from date to date, and if you are rehireable.
So here my doubt is, see, here we have employment of full-time and contract based, right? So for contract employee, to whom employment verification mail comes, what comes into picture?
If a person is working on a contract, there might be some employer.
Okay.
So it will go to that employer. If there is no employer, then obviously contract means it is always corp to corp. There might be some corporation under which the contract might have happened. So they will contact that corporation. Many a time, this contractual jobs, it is always preferable to have an employer so that your background check is very seamless. If you are doing these contracts as an independent contractor, then obviously they will treat you as an employer. So verification becomes difficult. They try to ask you, give your T4, give your ROE, give your so many other documents, or they ask you to get a letter from the company. So to answer your question, even if you're doing a contract job, they will contact your employer under whom your payroll is running.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is employment check. And number 4 is reference check.
Mhm.
Reference check is mostly to verify your characteristic traits. How good are you as a person?
In general, how many references do we have to provide?
Ideally, they ask for 3 references minimum.
From each employer?
Need not be from a reference check, and employment check is different. Reference check, you might give your supervisor in the end client. But in employment check, they verify who is your employer, from what date to what date you work. But in a reference check, they'll contact your, they will ideally ask for your supervisor references or manager references.
Suppose if I am working for a TCS client, so how I have in my resume I have updated two experiences, one with IBM and one with TCS. So how many references do I need to provide?
Let's say if TCS is your employer and you work for the client, let's say TD Bank, then the reference has to be given from the TD. Whoever is your reporting manager in TD, you have to give that as a reference. That becomes the first reference. If there is any other company or a client whom you worked with, you have to give that manager reference. If there are only 2 companies, then for the third one, you can also give your TCS manager reference. But reference check is mostly they will ask for your, can you work under pressure? Are you sincere in the job? Are you dedicated in the job? What is the role under which, what is the capacity under which the candidate has worked with you, right? So, and they will ask whether the candidate has any disciplinary issues in the job. So they just wanted to know how good are you as a person. Are you sincere, loyal, dedicated, can work under pressure? Are you a team player? Are you, somebody which your team likes? Do you have
Mm.
any issues within the team? Do you come to office on time? These are the things that they wanted to check as a part of reference.
So they'll ask these questions to my references to whom
Correct.
we
Yes.
okay.
In
So
reference check, they don't ask for dates.
huh, okay.
Okay.
What questions
Only
come
in
for
employment check, they ask for dates.
okay. So can you give me a few example like what questions they'll ask during the employment verification?
In employment verification, very simple. What is the role? From what date till what date? And what are is he rehireable? Only three questions.
Uh-huh.
But in
Okay.
reference check, it will take 15 minutes. They'll give
Mm-hmm.
a big form. Sometimes they do that over phone. Sometimes they give a big form to fill in.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, they ask you to do both. They verify everything on the phone, but whatever you have discussed over phone, if it is not recorded line, then they also ask you to fill a form.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they get a form as an attachment. Sometimes they send a link to fill. So you open that link and it will show a web page and you have to fill. So each company follows different practices.
Okay.
In fact, I should say employment check is always easier, but
Mm-hmm.
reference check is always difficult and it is time consuming. It takes, at least 15 minutes to fill a reference check form. And I get weekly 3 to 4 reference check forms, and I always find it difficult to spend time to fill it. Sometimes, people understand and they ask if they can call and they finish all that process over phone itself.
Mm-hmm.
And one important thing is in reference check, it is mandatory to give company email ID only. They don't
Oh,
accept personal email IDs.
okay. So when we say when we are working for TD Bank, it should be with TD Bank email, domain ID, email ID. Okay.
Yeah. And even for employment verification also, you have to give company email ID. They don't accept personal email IDs.
Okay.
Okay. So this is what happens. So reference check targets more on your personality traits, your characteristic traits, whereas employment verification talks more about whether your employment which you claimed in the resume is genuine or not. So both are two different. People always misunderstand what happens in reference check and what happens in employment check.
Okay.
Okay, and the fourth check is education check. Okay, they always verify your education documents. Okay, so whether the education, whatever you have claimed in your resume, again, all these checks will be done based on your resume. So they don't go anything above the resume or below the resume. Everything, whatever you mentioned in the resume, is verified as a part of the background check process. So if you have mentioned two education in your resume, they will verify if the two educations, whatever you have claimed, are correct or not. So they'll try to contact the universities to verify if you have really studied that and passed that either graduation or post graduation or a diploma. Okay. And the fifth one is credential check. In credential check, whatever certifications that you claimed in your resume, they will verify if all those certifications are valid and you have really done them or not.
Mm-hmm.
Many people, even without doing the certifications, they will mention in the resume. But if they order a credential check, then you are going to be in trouble. So we have to make sure that all the certifications we mentioned in the resume are neat, are valid. Even if it is expired, then credential check is going to be failed. Okay, and the other one is credit check. In credit check, they do if you have a valid credit score or not. Ideally, the credit score should be 450 and above. And many a time, this credit check is done only if you got an offer in the banks. Most banks and financial institutions prefer to do credit check because they also, whoever they are hiring, they want to ensure that the candidate who is coming into their company also respect bank policies. And one of the bank policies is having a good credit report. And it's not just the score. You need to make sure you don't have any collections, you don't have any missed payments, and you don't have any delinquencies.
What if I don't have the credit card? I'm a student. I don't have credit card.
Yeah, it is important you start working on getting your credit score.
Uh-huh.
If you don't have any credit score, then your credit check will fail.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which means you don't have proper status, because if you have status, you will obviously have some credit. As long as you have a SIN number, you will get your credit score, right?
Mm.
Because your phone number is on credit, your bank is on credit, right? So if you
So how
don't
can
have credit history, you have to build one.
oh okay. How can I check my credit score? Where can I check?
Well, there are some free sites like borrowwell.com that
Mhm.
offer free credit score. And each one of the banks also now in Canada, they're offering credit score for free. Scotia Bank gives it for free. BMO gives it for free. CIBC gives it TD. Every bank is now offering credit score for free. In there, you can check it in the app or in the your internet banking portal.
So can you give any tips to increase our credit score? So see, if I take recently, if I take the credit card and I won't get the minimum score, right? So how to increase my credit score? Is
Just take a postpaid connection,
uh-huh.
okay, and get a credit card with a very small limit,
Mm-hmm.
right? That these are enough, and try to make the payments on time. You will build your credit score above 450.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So fifth one credit score is done.
I
Credit check.
think we covered everything, like
Uh,
criminal check, identity check, employment check, reference check, education check, credential check,
mm.
credit check.
So is this background check done before the offer or after the offer?
Um, um, each company does it in a different way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some companies does background check before releasing the offer letter.
Mm-hmm.
Some companies give a conditional offer subject to clearing background check, and they do it after you get the offer letter and before you join the job. Some companies do it even after you join the job.
Mm-hmm.
Some companies do it even before you start the interview process, especially the federal and government companies. They always prefer to do and check whether the candidate who is being interviewed is clean. So they do even when you're submitting your resume, along with the resume, you also have to submit your background check document.
So what happens if we fail in BGC?
If you fail in background check, then obviously you won't get the offer, and
Mm-hmm.
that company will not give you offer anymore in the future,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you will be completely away from that company for lifetime.
So see, I have joined and they have done the background check after my joining date. So what happens? So will they
Yeah,
revoke
if
my
the
offer?
background check fails, then they will ask you to leave. Then they
Okay.
will pay for whatever time you work.
Okay. Okay. And recently I have heard about the security clearance. So can you give more insights on security clearance? Why
Yeah,
is it mandatory?
some jobs, especially the government jobs where you work with personal data and with some confidential data of the public, then you need to have separate clearance. The normal background check is not going to be enough. There is a process called as a security clearance, which are done by some specific bodies. So in the security clearance, there are three types. One is reliability level 1, reliability level 2, and top secret. Okay, top secret is for defense kind of jobs, but if it most of the IT jobs they do either reliability level 1 or level 2. For level 1, you need to be in Canada, irrespective of whatever status it is. I mean, temporary resident status or a resident status, for at least 5 years. So even if you are not on a PR, but if you are on a work permit for 5 years, you are still eligible to get the reliability level 1 clearance done. And for reliability level 2 clearance, you need to be physically in Canada for 10 years.
Mm.
Only if you are in 10 years in Canada, then you will be eligible for level 2 security reliability clearance.
What if they ask, are you eligible for security clearance? Suppose I have completed 5 years in Canada, and if they ask me, are you eligible for security clearance?
You can say, yeah, you're physically located in Canada for more than 5 years. So they can say that you're willing to get the reliability clearance. Reliability clearance has to be done by the agency or the employer only. We cannot get it done ourselves. It has to be a sponsored one.
Yeah, that's what. If they ask, are you eligible for security clearance? Whatever the reliable one or two, they will take it, right?
Yes.
So we have to say yes, I am eligible because
Yeah.
I have completed 5 years in Canada.
Correct.
Okay. So generally, which companies ask for security clearance? Do you have
Oh,
any criteria?
yeah, for federal companies, government companies, provincial government companies,
Okay.
federal government companies, defense companies, they always ask for security clearance. And one
Clearance.
thing I wanted to add, does each company does all these 7 types of checks? No.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some
Depends.
companies want all the 7 checks done. Some
Hmm.
companies just want background check done. Some companies do only criminal check and reference check. Some companies do reference check and employment check and criminal check. Some companies, depending on the role, if the role is mainly based on your past education, then they also want to do criminal check, your reference check, your employment check, and education check.
Education check.
If
Okay.
the role requires the certifications also mandatory, then they will do credential check, criminal check, reference check, and they might skip the employment check. So you have to figure out whether you are lucky or not, depending on what kind of checks are ordered at that time.
Hmm. Okay.
Mostly banks ask for all the checks.
Okay. Mostly
Yeah.
banks.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.